Self-Consecration. Section 2. And since yoga is in its essence a turning away from the ordinary material and animal life led by most men, or from more mental but still limited way of living followed by the few, to a greater spiritual life, to the way divine. Every part of our energies that is given to the lower existence in the spirit of that existence is a contradiction of our aim and our self-dedication. On the other hand, every energy or activity that we can convert from its allegiance to the lower and delegate to the service of the higher is so much gained on our road, so much taken from the powers that oppose our progress. It is the difficulty of this wholesale conversion that is the source of all the stumblings in the path of yoga. For our entire nature and its environment, all our personal and all our universal self are full of habits and of influences that are opposed to our spiritual rebirth and work against the wholeheartedness of our endeavor. In a certain sense, we are nothing but a complex mass of mental, nervous, and physical habits held together by a few ruling ideas, desires, and associations. An amalgam of many small self-repeating forces with a few major vibrations. What we propose in our yoga is nothing less than to break up the whole formation of our past and present, which makes up the ordinary material and mental man, and to create a new center of vision and a new universe of activities in ourselves, which shall constitute a divine humanity or a superhuman nature. The first necessity is to dissolve that central faith and vision in the mind, which concentrate it on its development and satisfaction and interest in the old externalized order of things. It is imperative to exchange this surface orientation for the deeper faith and vision, which see only the divine and seek only after the divine. The next need is to compel all our lower being to pay homage to this new faith and greater vision. All our nature must make an integral surrender. It must offer itself in every part and every movement to that which seems to the unregenerated sense mind so much less real than the material world and its objects. Our whole being, soul, mind, sense, heart, will, life, body, must consecrate all its energies so entirely and in such a way that it shall become a fit vehicle for the divine. This is no easy task, for everything in the world follows the fixed habit which is to it a law and resists a radical change. And no change can be more radical than the revolution attempted in the integral yoga. Everything in us has constantly to be called back to the central faith and will and vision. Every thought and impulse has to be reminded in the language of the Upanishad that is the divine Brahman and not this which men here adore. Every vital fiber has to be persuaded to accept an entire renunciation of all that hitherto represented to it its own existence. Mind has to cease to be mind and become brilliant with something beyond it. Life has to change into a thing vast and calm and intense and powerful that can no longer recognize its old blind ego narrow self of petty impulse and desire. Even the body has to submit to a mutation and be no longer the clamorous animal or the impeding clod it now is, but become instead a conscious servant and radiant instrument and living form of the Spirit. The difficulty of the task has led naturally to the pursuit of easy and trenchant solutions. It has generated and fixed deeply the tendency of religions and of schools of yoga to separate the life of the world from the inner life, the powers of this world and their actual activities. It is felt either at all or for some obscure and puzzling cause, Maya or another, a dark contradiction of the divine truth. And on their own opposite side, the powers of the truth and their ideal activities are seen to belong to quite another plane of consciousness than that, obscure, ignorant, and perverse in its impulses and folds, on which the life of the earth is founded. There appears at once the antinomy of a bright and pure kingdom of God and a dark and impure kingdom of the devil. We feel the opposition of our crawling earthly birth and life to an exalted spiritual God consciousness. We become readily convinced of the incompatibility of life's subjection to Maya with the soul's concentration in pure Brahman existence. The easiest way is to turn away from all that belongs to the One and to retreat by a naked and precipitous ascent into the other. Thus arises the attraction, and it would seem the necessity of the principle of exclusive concentration, which plays so prominent a part in the specialized schools of yoga. For by that concentration we can arrive through an uncompromising renunciation of the world at an entire self-consecration to the One on whom we concentrate. It is no longer incumbent on us to compel all the lower activities to the difficult recognition of a new and higher spiritualized life and train them to be its agents of executive powers. It is enough to kill or quiet them and keep at most the few energies necessary on one side for the maintenance of the body and on the other for communion with the divine. The very aim and conception of an integral yoga debar us from adopting his simple and strenuous high-pitched process. The hope of an integral transformation forbids us to take a shortcut or to make ourselves light for the race by throwing away from impedimenta. For we have set out to conquer all ourselves and the world for God. We are determined to give Him our becoming as well as our being, and not merely to bring the pure and naked spirit as a bare offering to a remote and secret divinity in a distant heaven, or abolish all we are in a holocaust to an immobile absolute. The divine that we adore is not only a remote extra-cosmic reality, but a half-veiled manifestation present and near to us here in the universe. Life is a field of divine manifestation, not yet complete. Here in life, on earth, in the body. However, as the Upanishads insist, we have to unveil the Godhead. Here we must make its transcendent greatness, light and sweetness real to our consciousness. Here possess and as far as may be express it life, then we must accept in our yoga in order entirely to transmute it. We are forbidden to shrink from the difficulties that this acceptance may add to our struggle. Our compensation is that even if the path is more rugged, the effort more complex and bafflingly arduous, yet after a certain point we gain an immense advantage. For once our minds are reasonably fixed in the central vision and our wills are on the whole converted to the single pursuit, life becomes our helper, intent, vigilant, integrally conscious. We can take every detail of its forms and every instant of its movements as food for the sacrificial fire within us. Victorious in the struggle, we can compel earth herself to be an aid towards our perfection and can enrich our realization with a booty torn from the powers that oppose us.